Hello and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by the very lovely Clare Urmston. Clare's currently CFO for Mamas and Papas, formerly non-exec director for Game, and has also just secured a new non-exec role that I know she can't quite reveal to us all yet. So delighted to have her on the show. Clare's also a member of our DAL Global Advisory Board as well, which is fabulous. And so looking forward to hearing all about how she came to where she is today, and some of her experiences around D&I. Welcome to the show, Clare.
Hi, Leila. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So for all of our listeners, Clare, give us a kind of a brief synopsis and a rundown of how you came to be where you are in your career today, because you seem to me to be a bit of a polymath. You've got lots of different experiences at that exec level, and great to hear how you got there.
Okay, so I started my career at KPMG, so I did the 3 years traditional audit path that most people do, followed by a 6-month stint in restructuring, which was really interesting, and I guess sort of pushed myself through the doors to get that. So I've always been one to express what I want to do and try and make it happen, either using networks or just tapping the right person on the shoulder. And then I think I decided quite quickly I didn't want to become an audit manager, and wanted to get out into the world and actually make a difference, I guess, and actually do something that sort of contributes to the business and you can see the difference. Quite luckily, an old colleague from KPMG contacted me about an audit role at Northern Foods, which I applied for and got. And I was really sort of quite fortunate there. It was a great experience to get around the business, build your networks. And then a role came up at the Shared Service Centre in Wakefield. So I'd only been in audit 5 months. I thought, oh, this seems a bit quick to move on. But I did, and it was great. Worked there for 18 months, sort of cut my teeth on people management. And I guess that's one of the things I'd say to people out there, don't be frightened to apply for things, even if it feels a bit too quick. And, actually to get to be a leader, you do have to have team management. So getting it early and continuing to do it, really, really helps. And then from there, I went on to do a variety of roles at Northern Foods, generally changing my role sort of every 18 months. I'd like to go in, sort of change things if I could for the better, and then do something different. So I've always liked variety and always been interested in trying something new. And I guess that's another thing, sometimes it's important to go sideways as well as upwards to get a wide range of skills. So that was Northern Foods, luckily doing some M&A work, and then my previous boss at Northern, who had left and gone to Wilko, tapped me on the shoulder about a role at Wilko. So I then went on to my 9-year career at Wilko, starting off in the commercial centre, the finance centre, and I really didn't want to do sort of financial reporting again. Wanted to go and learn all about retail and do the exciting, sexy stuff in the commercial world. But he was very much like, I think you need to learn the ropes, Claire, and of retail before you come and do the commercial stuff. And he was absolutely right. And there was loads that I could do to transform the departments and change things. And actually it meant that I got to learn about the business whilst doing a job that I could do quite easily without having to learn the commercial stuff and the industry stuff. So actually, sometimes listening to your mentors, if you like, and taking what they say on board and not just thinking, well, it's not quite the job I want now, because actually what that meant was it led on to the job that I wanted to do in the commercial finance sector. And then I went on to be head of finance and then more latterly the interim CFO before I went to maternity leave. So absolutely fabulous experience at Wilko's, really fast paced, loads of fun, great business, and I loved working there. Then I went on to my daughter, so had a year off with her, and then decided actually I quite like the CFO business. So I then went on to Symington's, back to food. So I think it's fair to say food and retail are my things, both in and out of work. I think it's fair to say, like shopping, like eating. So did the CFO role there, which was, sort of new challenge for me. I was sort of working on my own, with nobody I knew, so joined a new board. But yeah, working in private equity, so really interesting, something different. So always been willing to try different sectors, different business structures. So, and then moved on from Symington's to Mamas Papas, another private equity owned business. Again, it's a turnaround. So yeah, lots of challenges, but lots of things to get your teeth stuck into, which is great, because I think I find that really, really interesting. And then whilst at Symington's, I got the role as non-exec and chair of the audit committee, and that was through my contact at Wilko, so I sat on the board with there. So yeah, I think contact's obviously very, very important, and enjoying the people that you work with as well. So I've been lucky to have that.
Wow, what a fabulous career you've had to date. Honestly, absolutely brilliant. And I must ask, just kind of rewinding even a little further than that, when you obviously, started out kind of life, at KPMG and such, did you always want to go into finance? Was it something you thought, as a young girl, did you think, in my career, actually, I'm really interested in numbers? How did that come about?
To be honest, actually, I wanted to go into medicine originally. So both my parents worked in the NHS and were really keen for me to be a doctor. So I was sort of always pushed down that route. And then I think I must have watched too many episodes of Casualty, seeing these junior doctors absolutely burnt out, working 80, 90 hours a week. And doing dodgy things on patients. I thought maybe that's not for me. I like my sleep too much. So I said, what else could I do then? And then, yeah, I've always liked maths and numbers and problem solving. So finance seemed a good career. And here I am.
Brilliant. I know you kind of said that, what did you say now? You said kind of commercial finance, and some of the decisions that you made throughout that career journey were that actually, something might have seemed sexier than something else in certain areas. I mean, I suppose not one of the few females that is at, the level that you're at within various different organisations, but, there is massively kind of a disparity of women versus men at these levels, just taking one element, I guess, of diversity. Do you think in any way, shape or form that it could be that, I don't know, is finance appealing, to women? Is it deemed, are there certain areas that are deemed as more sexy? What are your thoughts around that?
So I think in finance, I find it quite heavily dominated with females in junior levels. And then I think when you come to the senior levels, like the CFO or the financial controller of the group, they sometimes were more male. So it's almost like there was a bit of a ceiling for females. But I think people are more accepting of actually it's the right person for the job. And I think a lot of women have probably been put off sometimes climbing the career for personal reasons. But I think actually people are open-minded to it, and I think I've always never seen myself as particularly a female, and it's an issue. I guess it's like, am I the right person to do the job? And actually, what do I need to do to get the skills to do the job? And making sure I do that, so that when I go for that interview, whenever that is, in 18 months, 2 years' time, I can sit there and say, I've got evidence of doing this, not this is how I would do things. So always got involved in things outside of my role. Did a lot of cross-functional working, sat on stuff like stock committees, which, aren't the most riveting on a Friday afternoon. But, you meet different people and they go, wow, she's bringing something to the table. Because I always think actually when C-suite roles are talked about internally, they ask not just, the CFO or the chairman, they'll ask a lot of your trading peers. And those you've got relationships or you've helped, you've worked, it's really, really important that you've got 8 people around the table going, absolutely, I support her to be the next person that's going to lead the business. So really important to build those relationships, and you have to sometimes be prepared to wait and not jump. So yeah, I think it's very much for me, it's having that whole toolkit when you turn up for the interview, which is the bit about working sideways, doing something different. You can get different skills, not just technical skills, but the leadership skills are just as important, to show that you can manage change, to show that you can manage conflict. All those sort of things are really, really important. Because usually by the time you get to the interview, CFO, they've already said technically you can do the job. This is about whether you can lead the team and lead the business.
This is such an interesting subject, and I think actually some really good advice actually for our listeners that are tuning in today to the show. But to really kind of focus very specifically on those areas, the key areas of strength, the fact that you can demonstrate, that you're good in a number of different areas, and sometimes it is right to make a sideways move, is to give you the breadth of experience like yourself, whether it be in, different sectors, different disciplines, other areas of finance, it's another form of diversity, that in into itself. But also, as you say there quite rightly, the power of the network is absolutely fundamental. I think more and more so actually as you move up into those more senior career positions and make it up to the C-suite ultimately.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things I've always tried to do is not just internal networks but external networks, which actually probably until the last 18 months has been quite difficult. So I remember going to one dinner and there were 30 men there, and I was the only female, about one lady who was actually working for the people who were hosting it, and you sort of look down the table and you're like, oh my goodness, but you just get on with it. But I can understand why that puts people off, because a lot of women, if they go to one and it's solely men, you just think, well, I'm not sure I want to spend my evening with a load of guys. But it's also important not to go the other extreme and just do female networking events. So I always try and do both, because I think they're both as valuable.
I couldn't agree. Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. Yeah, so no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's that interesting kind of juxtaposition, isn't it? You don't want to be, told that you've, say, just got the role because you're a female, or have people presume that because there is a lack of, gender diversity, just to take one aspect of diversity. But then at the same time, it can also be incredibly intimidating, and you want to be able to share experiences with women or other individuals that you share certain affinities with or have something in common with. So I absolutely know what you mean.
Yeah, I know, and and I think it's the same when I went through a management development program. I was one of a cohort of 12, the only female, and I think actually I've always thrived in that environment. I've never really you sort of observe it, but it's never hindered me. But I think actually if companies can, if they recognise that, I guess there's two questions to ask themselves: how have we got into this position where we've only got one female? And also, what can we do to support them? Because one of the things I find is I'm actually quite softly spoken, so sometimes getting heard can be a challenge. So actually having someone saying, well, what do you think? And the room stop and listen. If you're struggling, over lots of men trying to get airspace, sometimes it can be, physical things like that I do find sometimes challenging. So yeah, little things like that, you can tip someone off if you're struggling, little things to think about. What are the challenges before I go into a meeting, or and then how can I overcome those if they come along? But yeah, I generally just try and just jump in and get on with it, to be honest.
I think that's really good advice. And again, I as you were talking about that example, I was thinking back to my own experiences, and it was, oh my goodness, hopefully KPMG don't tell me off saying this, because they've got some fantastic diversity and inclusion initiatives, but it just happened to be a dinner with KPMG, and there were a number of women actually who were due to turn up, and anyhow was, like yourself, actually ended up being the only woman in the room, and just thought for a second, oh my goodness, suddenly felt incredibly self-conscious. But, it's funny because as when you're starting out in your career, actually the scales seem to be quite even. So you don't think to yourself, actually, is gender going to be unbalanced later on? It's just something that, suddenly, seems to appear almost. And, what you were saying before about the fact that actually there's, perhaps a lot of women, and there's a good, strong mixture of male to female, at those more junior roles, but it does start to diminish further and further. I mean, you look at, the FTSE 250, 350 is something like, 8 women CEOs, and, the C-suite, it just, starts to diminish down. And so it's, how can we get more visibility and get more allies, I guess, to be able to support those who, perhaps don't have the confidence to speak up, or are more softly spoken, or, not able to be heard.
No, and I think as well, now I am starting to see a difference. So obviously when you're looking at roles, there are quite a few corporates now that proactively say we want a diverse board, and therefore we will favour a female position.
So Claire, you sit on the ICAEW committee and also the Women on Boards for Deloitte. Talk to me a little bit about how these networks run. And in fact, actually, what does ICAEW stand for those at home who might not know?
So the ICAEW is the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales. So that's like the governing body for all chartered accountants. So I've sat on that for about 6 years now. And I've done a few things with them which were about improving diversity within the ICAEW and within business. So they recognise within finance that there's a certain level that women reach and then they tend to stop. They run quite a few programmes actually. So I was on maternity leave at the time and they were running a programme for people who were returning to work to give them confidence to go back to work and help them link in with people like some of the big four who do some great practices about 9 to 3:30, or they do just come and work for us for 3 or 4 months. If you like it, then we can potentially take you on. So really encouraging women to get back into work. And one of the quotes there that I've always remembered is there was an MP there, and she says, when we're talking around the room and men can be funny about women working funny hours or whatever, or don't get it, we all need to remember that somebody was pregnant to get us in this room. And I've always remembered that because I think actually
I love that.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? I think she's absolutely right, because actually without your mothers, guys, you wouldn't be here either. So let's give mothers a bit of a break and try and help them get back into work, and let's help them get up the ladder and understand what the barriers are. And,
I love that quote. I've actually just scribbled it down here on my piece of paper. I absolutely love that. And what were some of the other kind of the topics that came up? So obviously this is these are women's networks which are excellent. So women can share issues and challenges that might have come up that they might not feel comfortable speaking about in other more public forums. But what were some of the key pieces that women were struggling with in specific?
I think some of them were actually, so one of the presentations that Deloitte were there did, and this was about how women get into partnership, and they were actually observed that some of when previously the panels were sometimes all men, so they'd be 4 men and women would go in front of them, and I think there's always an observation that men would be telling what they can do and women always look at the things they can't do. And they were saying, actually giving them coaching before they went for these panel interviews. And they actually took 2 men off the panel and put 2 women on. And then there was a massive difference in the change of actually women coming through. But sometimes actually looking at the recruitment process, it's not actually the candidates, it might just be the perception of the panel. So they're really looking about why is this that we just can't get women coming through because we know that they're good enough to do it. So that was an interesting topic at the time, and it was also for the ICAEW, how do we get women to stay in the business as well? So they're looking at all different options and how they can support them. They do a lot of committees in the regions, particularly aimed at women to help them get back into work or develop their competencies, etc. So in a safe environment. So there's a lot of, from my view, from the ICAEW and the Big Four, loads of proactivity taken to get women back into the workforce and helping them climb the ladder.
Fantastic. And just before we wrap up today, Claire, I know you've listened to the show before, so just going to whip into a quick lightning round. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer each of the next questions before summarising. But I wonder, is there any specific advice that you might have given to the young Claire when she was starting back in her career, back at KPMG and thinking about what she wanted to do next?
Yeah, so I was quite impressionable. So I'd look at all the good leaders around me and go, oh, wow, what do they do? And I guess I'd probably try and copy. I think advice to me was be your true self. Actually, you don't have to be like anybody else. But, if you see something good that lots of people doing, just take the bits that you like and copy those, but don't try and copy any one person, be yourself.
Mm-hmm. And what about authentic leadership? What's authentic leadership to you?
I think for me, it's about being open, it's being honest, it's being approachable and having the integrity. So my team would always say, you're really approachable. If you say you're going to do something, do it. So yeah, it's just having your team to follow. They've got to believe in you and have that trust in you that you'll do what you say that you do. But you'll also tell them if things aren't going so well. So just be really honest and open when you can.
So I love that. Thank you ever so much, Claire. And
Thank you.
And it's been really great talking to you. And there's a huge amount of things that actually I also learned as well from our conversation and the podcast today, and hopefully the listeners at home have too. Some of the key pieces that I've written down here that I think are real nuggets of gold that hopefully others can pick up on, especially for women. But not just women, but women and men and anyone. But really, the power of the network. You mentioned it a couple of times, is so incredibly important. If it is the case that, you're a woman going off on maternity leave or a father going on paternity leave, actually staying in touch with the network, staying in touch with what is happening is so critical to make sure that you can come back in and hopefully have more confidence to be able to then get back up the ladder and succeed if that is what you are wanting to do. And I love the piece there, as well also about family. Business shouldn't be a place that we come to and have to behave in a certain way. Actually, our best selves can thrive if we are able to really embrace one another and work together in a similar way as we would do with family. I think the example of the team member that was autistic that you brought into the fold was excellent, and actually really demonstrates the importance of everyone taking a little bit of time just to learn more about each of us, because we're all human beings at the end of the day, and we all have different needs and wants and desires. So thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. My name's Leila Mackenzie-Dellis, and you've been listening to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast, with you every week. Clare Urmston's been on the show today, and if you'd like to check out her profile or get in touch with any questions at all, do reach out to her on LinkedIn or get in touch with me, and I will reach out and make sure your questions are answered. If you want to download the podcast, it's available on Apple or Spotify. You can go to our websites to download that for free. www.dialglobal.org/podcast or www.leilamackenzie.com/podcast. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.